started planning it last fall. It was 8 weeks, and it was 6 weeks, and it ended up being 4 weeks. And so he kept making adjustments to how much to introduce people to. And meanwhile, we're working on helping him become even better with his Greek. He taught himself a lot of it, and so there are some basic parts of trying to figure out what's the main verb and what's the key line going through here, and what's all the decoration that we have to figure out how to hang it on the sentence. And so I had never done diagramming, and so we've been doing diagramming of Greek sentences for the past 5 weeks. And I'm still not very good at the other guy's method that I bought the book for, but it's at least better than trying to come up with it now. So we're having a great time, meet every week to help maximize that, because when I started last October or September with a cohort 1 student getting in halfway through, the assumption was I'd be doing something until October, and that October has become May, and so we're rushing through to try to maximize what we can do in terms of getting that taken care of. So lots of adaptation in the entering process.
And you know what? Thank you, Stan. Thank you very much. Just for everyone else, because I've met everyone, sorry, I should have asked, can you just say, obviously your name is on the screen, but just say where you're at and what you do as each person goes around. That would be very helpful for those that haven't met you. So I apologize. Thanks.
I'm currently in my middle son's office. He moved out several years ago, and I claimed it for my office. And I'm in Towanda, Kansas, but I teach at Friends University, where I'm a Bible professor. And since we met last fall, 2 sons have gotten engaged, and I have a wedding in a month.
Wow.
So my wife is organizing me. Take care of that. Did I get all the right things, Rick? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I'll mute now.
I'll jump in. I started this last fall. I'm Don Dennison, living in Findlay, Ohio. For 20 years, I directed cross-cultural ministries for our denomination, which is based here, Churches of God General Conference. Since last summer, I've transitioned to a role of church and mission consultant, where I'm working specifically with a few churches at a time to develop their missions program. My student is in Pennsylvania, and the neat thing is, because I often make trips out to Pennsylvania, we're able to sit across the table from one another and not just do a Skype thing, which we still do once in a while. But he's working on a church planting model, wanting to, he's looking at a symbiotic relationship between business and church, wanting to see a 501c3 established that's a company or a corporation that has a facility that has rental space for businesses, and the church is one of those spaces. His premise is that churches often don't do finances well, and that buildings become a big drain on their ministry and eats up so much of their time and money. So it's an interesting type of model. This last semester, he was working at interviewing pastors and church planters, and I even connected him with some people overseas, where he did interviews with a guy, for example, in Europe, who's in Stockholm, Sweden. So that was a real learning experience for him. This semester, he's working on a business model, because if he's going to sell the idea to some business people who will invest in the project, then he's got to look at some potential models. So he's researching how to write the best business models that give some options so that the business people are willing to invest in this. So it's been a learning experience for him, and I've enjoyed the journey with him.
Great, thank you.
Well, I'm David Phillips. I'm on the west side of Atlanta. I pastored for years in Delaware, and restarted a couple of churches, and so I moved back to the South, which is where I'm from.
Sorry, David, can you just either get a little closer or speak a little louder? It's a little,
Sure.
thanks.
I'm having some back problems, so I'm laying in the floor. So that's why it looks a little weird. So I restarted a couple of churches in Delaware, and also planted a couple of our church planted a couple of churches there. It just got too cold, so it was time to move back south. So my student is Kurt is working on. He actually wants to teach leadership, and he wants to write a book. And I used to be a publisher, so that kind of helps him in that regard. So right now he's working on a section or a concept that he's playing around with terms right now, but it's internal monologues and external monologues, or internal communication, external communication. Basically, it's the stories that we tell ourselves, and how that affects our leadership, which I think is a pretty interesting concept, because sometimes we don't connect in that or with that what we think and how we think about ourselves and about our world actually affects how we lead and develop leaders as well. So he's moving along well in that. He's trying to be. We're talking about different journals and peer-reviewed articles and things like that. He wants to do some writing in that area, and even as he continues doctoral work. So he's moving forward pretty well, and I'm kind of excited about this particular semester for him because of the topic.
Great. Thanks, David.
I'm working with Lee Waldron, and Lee started out wanting to really look at developing a school. And so we looked at the administrative side of development of a school. And it was kind of an interesting journey for him, because at the end of that first semester, he went, I don't want to do that. So it was really good, because we were able to cross that one off the list. But he loves coaching. He loves working with athletes. And so this continued a process of kind of talking through some of that. And so now he's in his last semester. He'll be finishing up by developing a character development process for athletes that will go through a season. So he is currently next fall, he'll be working with the football team there at Tabor. And so he's looking forward to that. He's already gotten that approval from the coach. He's spent a lot of time with different coaches and across Kansas and even some other places. He's even worked with some of the chaplains for the Kansas City Chiefs. There was somebody else he had a great contact with some of the different coaches. He tried to get a conversation with Coach Dungy, but that didn't quite work out, but he's still hoping to pull that one off. He's got a couple of other things that we've been able to work through with FCA and with some other sports ministries that we've got a contact with. So he's done really well, just doing a lot of interviews, a lot of time just to try and sort this thing out. But his ultimate goal would be to be a chaplain for a professional football team. And he knows that's a long-term goal, because it takes a while to get there and work through the ranks. But his work right now is he's looking a lot with the colleges. And this process he's working with is kind of being a people helper, as well as trying to really walk through a curriculum-based piece on character development. So he's pretty excited about it. So we're working through that, looking at different pieces. He's writing chapter after chapter, and so hopefully we'll be able to pull this thing off by May. By the way, I'm Randy Davis. I'm in Indianapolis, or Fishers, Indiana, and I work with the National Network of Youth Ministries. I'm the Director of Leadership and Partnership for the National Director of Leadership and Partnership for NNYM.
Thank you. Thanks, Randy.
So I'm Karen, and I spend a lot of time with Rick. And right now I'm adjuncting at Tabor and doing some work with an elementary school. My background is social work and also teaching back in California at a university. But my direction personally is to move into spiritual direction. And so that's what I'm aiming to get a certificate in May, which works really well with the student I have. I think her long-term goal essentially would be to open a retreat home with her husband. That's way, way down the road. And they have 3 small kids, so that's just the end goal. So she moved it back to a sense of a weekend retreat with women. That's her project, would be creating the weekend soul care retreat, what that would look like. And one of the interesting things that we're noticing is that kind of, I think what you were saying, David, like she's really discovering herself in this process of leadership. She's discovering what triggers her, what triggers her, the buttons that gets pushed, a lot of things that we're figuring out she needs to learn how to deal with because it will come up against her over and over. It's just not a one-off thing. So how she reacts to those things is really important in role modeling, but also for her own care in leadership. And so we're doing some work in personal development, but then she's also very interested in coaching. So she's doing some coaching training. She's doing some spiritual direction training of her own initiative, and then basically learning how to put on a retreat. And so it's interesting with 3 kids, the amount of time that she has to give to this is sometimes really scattered, sometimes really focused, and then sometimes just, she's going, I got sick kids all week long, didn't do a thing. So we're really juggling that, and I think she's finding that part of her that's mom, but also leader, but also wife, and just learning how that all works together. And so it's great. We talk every other week and we have a good time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Well, I guess I could go. My name's Scott, and I live in the San Bernardino, California area. I'm currently a hospice chaplain. I've been doing hospice chaplaincy for about 5 years. Before that, as a youth pastor in a church, associate small groups pastor in a church, in churches, and I got paired up with Joe, my student, because of my desire and love for the next generation. And his project he's coming up on his final semester here and doing his final project. He used to be on staff at Tabor College in the student affairs, student life department, and has recently, at the beginning of this semester, taken a new job at Ohio Christian University in that same line of work. And so his project that he's been working on, he was going to put into practice at Tabor. So that's all shifted. And it was really, his journey in this program has been awesome because the whole reason why he even went to Ohio Christian University is because of this program and a connection he made here and just the transformation that he's had in his own life going through the missions trip you guys took over the summer. That was very transformational for him. So I use that word transformational because that's what his whole life is right now. And that's what his project is about, is transforming students' lives through the disciplinary process that campuses have to have for their students. And so he doesn't like the punitive type of thing. So he's trying to take a look at the model of restorative justice model and how that can be applied on student life on campuses, especially Christian college campuses. And he's doing a phenomenal job. He's done a lot of research, and he's coming up with a new model of how to do restorative discipline through mentoring relationships and trying to say, hey, this is not just about
helping somebody's behavior change, but really how do we disciple these students into becoming genuine followers of Christ? And he's doing a great thing. Very close to being done with his project. He's just not going to be able to implement, although it seems as though in his new position, in his new school, he'll be able to probably put it into practice pretty soon. He's been given a lot of green lights in a lot of ways. So, yeah, it's been really awesome to be with Joe. I'm really bummed that we're coming up towards the end of this process because we've become really good friends and shared our lives together. We meet every couple weeks or so, but yeah, he's doing a great job. I fully expect him to put it into practice and really transform the way universities do student discipline. I really believe that.
Thanks, Scott. Joe, you're up.
All right, I'm Joe Skillen. I'm in Atlanta. I've only been here a year. I'm a pastor at Peachtree Presbyterian Church. Before that, I was from Kansas, Wichita area. But month by month, I'm becoming more Atlanta friendly. Just bought a Toyota Prius today, so that makes me more ready to drive in the city. My student is Aaron Duvall. He's actually Scott's student's boss at Ohio Christian U. And he's got a particular interest as the chaplain on that campus, thinking about how his age group of students hear the gospel and what would be a good news telling to millennials in this stripe of life. So last semester we looked at just the theological idea of gospel, and this semester we're looking at young adult spirituality in particular. And Aaron's a thinker. He likes to be pushed. We have conversations every week that we promise should only be 15 minutes, but it turns into 45 to an hour because we talk about philosophy and pop culture and whatnot. So I'm excited what he's going to come up with this semester. We're actually looking at the idea of consumption in spirituality, because what we hear a lot both on his campus and what I hear a lot in Atlanta are young adults shopping for churches. They don't church hop anymore. They church shop. And that's just kind of interesting how they're more readily to be called consumers and not citizens and what that might mean. So he's great. I'm having a fantastic time.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks all for catching us up and for all of you. I mean, I've said this before for those that have been here for a year and a half, and have heard me say this before, but it always intrigues me, and I love just hearing the diversity. And so when I was building this program and thinking about this specific part, this faculty mentor piece, I really was thinking big umbrella, and you're hearing that, if this is your first meeting or the first time where you've heard kind of maybe a bit more of a breadth of people, that's okay by me. I mean, I've met with each student at the beginning to sort of try to connect them with you, and I love hearing what they want to do. I love it that they're doing Greek and they're working on projects of retreat centers or, restorative justice or sports. Like, I think that's fantastic. And to me, that's part of the entrepreneurial piece here that I love and that makes this program different than maybe some others. So I'm okay with that. If you're thinking, man, this is quite a broad range of things, that's okay with me, and was okay with the accreditors, at least at the beginning. So hopefully they'll continue to agree. They'll continue to agree with me as we go down the road. But no, I just want to take a couple minutes. There are 3 other mentors and students, and 2 of them are in the first cohort. We've got Cesar Garcia, who some of you met because he did join us one time for the second cohort students. His student is John, and he's a missionary in Thailand. And John's project is trying to figure out how to truly build multinational teams. So if you have a team in their context for Thailand, they actually have Japanese missionaries and North American missionaries and missionaries coming from South America that are supposed to be team. And then they're also trying to integrate, the local believers into team leadership. And so that's his project. And the cool thing is Cesar is, because Tabor's a Mennonite Brethren school, Cesar is actually the president or director of the Anabaptist World Conference, or the Mennonite World Conference. And so he's based in Bogota, Colombia, and his role brings him across literally the entire world of Mennonites and Anabaptist churches. And so he's a great connection for John. Chris Sharp is in Pennsylvania. She works for Global Disciples. They do training for people in different countries, local indigenous leaders, and she's with one of the students named Kristen, who Joe recommended. So thank you very much to the program. And then the final person that will actually be finishing this part right now is a woman named Edith. Edith is mentored, paired up with a woman named Cindy, and Cindy couldn't make it tonight. But Edith's project has been very much, like some of you have already said, very much an internal personal journey toward her own leadership, finding her own voice. And actually, she's an older woman, grandmotherly age. She's actually turning that into a way to help other people in her shoes find their voice. So it's become very, very interesting that she's realized that her story is actually the story that many have, and that the need in her own life is actually a need for many people who feel marginalized and excluded as they're widowed or divorced or whatever at older ages. So that's been really cool to see all that kind of connect. I wanted to just talk briefly about, particularly for those of you that are in your final term, and how is it going? Are you finding any issues or any things that are jumping to you, rather than me assume and start talking? And then I do want to talk about one last thing regarding the name of the program, but I'll leave that for a minute. But as you're coming to the end, are things coming together for you? Or are you looking for more clarity from me? That kind of thing, for those of you that are wrapping up.
My question would be, what type of documentation is the program looking for in terms of their project? Ideally, this is something we were going to have repetition of, originally planned, but it's far beyond our control to determine how often it would be held. And so that's just something that I would be looking for, because another week or so I'm going to have to be communicating with him what those expectations are on my part, on Rick's behalf, or Karen's perhaps.
Yes. No, thank you. Thank you. Here's what let me start by saying this whole thing, as we go month by month, is an unfolding of something that was in my brain that we're now all living out. So every time I have a conversation like this, I just shake my head and think, wow, this is amazing. So what I'm about to tell you, based on your feedback, may need to change. But here's what I'm operating on at the moment, and the way that I've been intending for the feedback and the material. What I've told the students all along that is really important is that they actually do something, that this entrepreneurial course leads to some action. Although there's always been the caveat that if you're planning something huge, let's say Randy was talking about Lee wanting to start a school. Well, I would have expected, had he gone down that road, that he wouldn't be starting a school this spring, but that he'd have a binder full of, September 1 or whenever, he would start working through that, and he'd be ready to go to start the school. So for most students, I think they are doing something major. Scott has said already that Joe's plan has shifted a little bit. So what I'm asking from my student, what I'm expecting or thinking with yours, is really kind of a narrative, like an entire program narrative in a way, for the student to write sort of their journey in this program as it applies to the project. I don't want to know what they took, in their first course, unless that's relevant. But that's not what I'm thinking. But it's sort of, I went in wanting to start a school, and my whole plan changed. But here's how I've implemented this idea. Here's the pieces that have come together. So it's sort of a in the midst of it, what research methods did I use to come up with this plan, if that is what they did? Most of us have sent them on some kind of lit review at some point. How did it actually work? And then a write-up of sort of what would I do differently. And so, I've been telling the student that I supervise, I'm thinking this is a 40 plus page, she includes all of her material, the plan that she put together, all the different things that she did that day. It's going to be probably 40 pages of material. Ultimately, and this is where I guess I was thinking earlier, I'm open to your wisdom. Ultimately, from Tabor's perspective, you don't need to send me a bound copy of their master's thesis. It really is you and them working this out. And I want to know, I trust you. I want to know that they did this, but I don't necessarily need a copy. At one point I thought about a second reader kind of thing, but because it's a project and not a thesis, I sort of thought I don't need to do that. Now again, if you think, oh man, your academic rigor is just terrible, then I'm open to hearing that. I really am. But I guess I've been thinking, really what I want them to do is sit back and reflect on their journey and write it up and be very specific about what they've done and put that together in a package for you. How does that sound? Like, am I just like out to lunch? Does that make any sense? I'm very open to your wisdom.
I guess if I threw anything in, I think it would be really important for you to have copies of the students' projects, at least to have on your shelf. Maybe not only as a record, but just for, I don't know, it might feel like the student might feel actually more validation that the director of the program has it in their possession. That's just my thinking. As I worked with MBA theses, even though I worked with them, the director had a copy, and it just felt really good for the student. Okay. That's just one opinion. I'm open, to having others veto that.
Yeah, no, thanks. That's a good point.
I know for what Lee is working on, he's going to have something that is going to be in hand that it's going to be usable for him right away. But the other piece to that is that it's got enough opportunity to adjust and shift with it. So I'm sure that he would have a document. The way we're looking at it right now, it is probably about a 9 to 10 sessions, just with the team in a kind of a chaplain kind of a feel. Not so much a structured service, but more of a conversation that he can have with 1, 20, or the whole team. But it'd be something that he could be transferable from sport to sport, that kind of thing. So it will have some direction, but will also be wide enough that I think he's going to have a lot of fun with it. But to say all that, I know he wants to have that obviously in writing, bound, ready to roll for him. And so I think it would be great for, as Karen just suggested, to have it on your shelf, to know that it is something that's documented that he's walked through. I think in turn, to realize, like we probably all do at some point with the work we've done, we look back and go, man, I wish I'd have changed that, or I wish I'd have changed that. He's got that freedom to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, that's great. I like that idea very much. I think that's great.
I guess my thought is, one, you're dealing with an international group of students, that most likely getting a hard copy is going to be difficult. And you may want to look at having an electronic repository where individuals can go out from wherever they are around the globe to see what the initial groups may have done and get some ideas about that. It may also be a little bit easier for the accrediting opportunities. And then if you have room on your bookshelf, somehow you can get them bound and show them up. But I don't know if Tabor's in the has the capacity to do a bunch of binding of MA thesis, if that's within their section. one of their common practices. If they do, then that'd be great. If not, then you're treading open ground. I do know from having things bound in the past that there are all sorts of guidelines and stipulations and formatting that you want it to be consistent for all those. And electronic, you can have a little more flexibility.
Mm-hmm.
Just my 2 cents.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think I'm hearing that's a lot of wisdom. I like that. Just that I would have them and that they'd know they'd be coming into me. I wouldn't grade them. I mean, that's your piece, but I think it would be good to have. And I could figure out some kind of electronic. That's a good idea.
Hey, Rick, on the syllabus, I mean, you kind of broke down the narrative to include all those bullet points. From your explanation verbally, it doesn't sound like you want it to be like straight up that strict, that's like the working outline, or can it be those points be covered in a different format?
I'm open to them covered in different format. And that was one thing I was going to say. I worked very hard over Christmas break to really try to get everything into that last syllabus, which you all should have. Let me know if you don't, and I'll resend it. So most of the faculty mentor syllabi are just simply me changing the date for the first 3 terms. But that last one, I really worked hard to read.
Yeah.
And so, let me know. But if those points are covered, I think that's good.
Yeah, I'm asking because pretty much Joe was pretty finalized on his last time he turned in some work to me last semester. So we were just kind of wanting to know if he needs to reformat what he's already done, because we were going to stick with his format that he had already given to me, because he's pretty much got a true academic dissertation format.
Great.
I've kind of led him in that direction. So, yeah, if that's cool with you. I mean, with the exception of, I think there's definitely valid points that are in the, as far as, how the evaluation and a little bit more of the personal evaluation of his journey, I think is something he hasn't necessarily put into writing yet. So.
Okay. But yes, no, if you have him work on that from an academic perspective, that sounds great.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Rick, I know George Fox has some kind of repository now where you can go and search all the DMin projects, DMin dissertations. So you might be able to check with them as far as a repository goes. Check with Lauren or Lynn or see what they do.
Okay. Yeah. Great point. I forgot about that. Yeah. I'll write that down. Thanks.
The other advantage of having whether electronic version or hard copy is it can help you in terms of promoting and marketing this particular program as giving these examples to potential students.
Yes. I like that. I hadn't thought about it from that angle, and I like that very much. And what George Fox has, you can log in and somehow look at different ones. So there must be some. I'll contact them, because that would be something similar would be very cool. Very nice. Well, I want to honor your time, and I think I've heard that that's very helpful. One thing I also want to just float by you. Most of you know that Leonard Sweet's one of the faculty members working with us on this program. And from the very first time I was talking to him about it, he told me how much he hated the name. And if you've had him as if you've done the DMin with Len, he doesn't like the word leadership. He wants people to be followers of Jesus. Which makes sense. I mean, I like that. That makes sense. So I've been playing around, and actually, apart from Len, I took a course. I'm always taking MOOCs online. I love doing that kind of stuff. And I took one on social entrepreneurship in November, and it was fantastic. It was really great, really good program. And as I listened to all the different people presenting, they kept talking about entrepreneurship and social entrepreneurship. And it suddenly hit me, or the Holy Spirit, depending on your point of view or theology, that the better name for this program would be ministry entrepreneurship. It sort of fits within the flow. So you could go to a secular university and get a degree in entrepreneurship. You can go to many colleges or universities get one in social entrepreneurship. And so, so I floated the idea about changing the name to Ministry Entrepreneurship. I think there's lots of reasons why that's helpful. Lynn came back to me and said, how about Ministry Entrepreneurship and Innovation? And that's actually what Jules, the president, likes the most. I think that still works. The trouble can be with entrepreneurial ministry leadership. I think sometimes the brain hangs up on trying to define entrepreneurial that you don't hear the other two parts. So I think ministry entrepreneurship and innovation, or just ministry entrepreneurship, is where we're headed. It won't change anything else. We'll still talk about leadership. We'll still cover that in courses. We'll still talk about as a leader or as an entrepreneur. These are the things that you want to shift. But when I got hired, the name Entrepreneurial Ministry Leadership had come out of a focus group that they had here at Tabor, and that was the name I had to work with. But now that we're sort of into it, we're living it, I'm pretty excited to make the change. And so it's still in very much, you're only kind of the second or third group of people that I've talked to with our staff. Basically, the president, our local Tabor staff, and now you are the people. I haven't even talked to the students yet about this, which I will on Thursday night. But I think that fits better into who we are and makes it a little bit easier to communicate to folks what we're doing. So I wanted to let you know about that's something that I'm pretty cool. I think that'll be fun. A little bit different name. So coming down the pipe. So don't go out and buy your sweatshirts yet with the Entrepreneurial Ministry Leadership stuff on it. The other thing, sorry, speaking of sweatshirts, I don't know, for those of you, so actually a couple students, Stan's student Greg, he came at January last year, so he won't be actually done till Christmas time. Edith will also be done at Christmas, but Joe and Lee and Aubrey, the student that I'm supervising, will all be graduating, walking, getting hooded. You are very welcome. I'm not trying to pressure in any way to any of you, but all of you, when it comes time for your student to graduate, you are very welcome to come. As fellow doctors, you're welcome to walk with us in the processional, wear your gear and the whole bit and be there. And if you did come, I would at least talk to the committee to see if there was some way that you could be involved in the hooding for your particular student. So I haven't thought more than me just saying that right now off the top of my head, but I would definitely go to the committee, the academic dean, and see about that happening. So I just want to throw that out there, that you would be very welcomed as a part of our community on that particular day, if that is something that works into your schedule. So I couldn't pay you to come. I couldn't pay for you to be here, sadly. But we'd love to have you. I definitely could take you out for dinner that night or something just to treat you if you come. but yeah, you're very welcome to be here. That'd be cool if that ever worked. Any other questions or things that you wanted to check in on? I kind of emailed the agenda, kind of the plan, and I always appreciate people's time when it's an evening after a long work day, and so I don't want to keep us on a long time. So any other issues, though, or questions?
The only thing that we're really dealing with, Lee and I, is just the time factor. He was the director of admissions for Lee, for Tabor, and he's already resigned from that position because of everything that he's been going through and what he's dreaming about. So he's moving forward with this. It's somewhat of an unknown, but they've come to, he and his wife have really come to, this is what I've got to do, which I think is exciting for him and scary all at the same time. But in that, he's gotten so wrapped up in trying to get some other things in place. He's working on stuff and he'll send it to me, but we have not had as much time to talk this semester as we have the previous 3. So I'm trying to be sensitive to that. I also understand a lot of different things, but how much do I need to look at him and kind of go, hey, wait a minute. No, we've got to meet. We're walking through stuff, so it's not like we're not getting anything done, but he's doing the majority of the work, I'm kind of looking at it going, hey, you might want to think about this.
Yeah.
But it's really more along the lines of even face-to-face contact we've not had. What's your suggestions there?
I appreciate you raising that, Randy, because I wonder if, hearing you say that and seeing Scott shake his head a little bit, I wonder if it's a natural piece for that final term. I'm realizing that with my student. We aren't sitting down as regularly, but that's also because I said, look, write a bunch and then let's meet and we'll talk about what you're writing. Like there's not a lot to talk about in the midst of kind of the preliminary writing and things. So I guess for this final term, for the final term, the fourth term for the students, I guess maybe that's a natural kind of piece. They're really focusing in, they're doing a lot more writing, and ultimately we'll be reading that writing and giving feedback and things. And so it could be something that maybe is more regular as we get toward the end. So I'm not worried. I guess my answer is I'm not worried about that, because actually that's what we're finding in our relationship with my student as well.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. I know, Stan, yours is a little bit different because you're still working on Greek is something that has to be done, more face-to-face than some of the things that we're talking about likely.
Yeah. I'll probably just get with you offline on the email or whatever. And so his project is done now, but he's not finishing until December.
Correct.
Does he have classwork to go back and pick up on, or?
Yes, because he started in January. There was a couple courses he missed last fall, or a year ago fall, that he will need to pick up. So his actual graduation date won't be till December.
But he's been through enough semesters of the project.
Yes.
To manage that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you all for your time. I would like to just offer a prayer and thank you again for being together tonight. And I will connect with the three who weren't able to show up, but thank you very much for your time. And I'll try to connect one more time right before we finish, just to make sure everybody's on track. And please let me know if, again, for those that are finishing, if there's any surprises. I'd rather know way ahead than the day before graduation. That would not be too good. So, but let me pray, and I look forward to chatting with the rest, each of you individually online and things.